Adam, last week not around, so I want to circle back to a couple of, unfortunately, gambling kind of scandal things that are going on, and none bigger than perhaps the biggest name in all of Major League Baseball in Shohei Ohtani and his translator, in which, I don't know, man. Like, I'm curious to get your thought on all of this, because it started out as I gave this guy a loan to help him out, and now it went to never mind, he stole from me and all this. And it typically, when there's weird things going on with stories, there's probably weird things going on with the story itself.
You certainly picked an interesting time to have to miss a week of this podcast because what has happened in the sports betting world in the past 2 weeks with Ohtani and with Jontay Porter in the NBA, which we will get to talking about a little bit later, it has been a time of upheaval followed by an assault of think pieces over what the state of betting on sports in the United States is like. Let's start with Ohtani. Ippei Mizuhara, his interpreter, his close friend, is now accused of stealing millions of dollars from Shohei Ohtani to pay off gambling debt to an illegal illegal bookie in California named Matthew Bowyer. What we've seen in the time that it took to get that story on paper is that Ippei had already gone out prior and given an interview in which he said that Shohei Ohtani was helping him pay off the debt. He said that Shohei Ohtani had made multiple payments from his bank account, that Ippei had watched as Ohtani made the payments from his bank account, $500,000 at a time, to pay off the gambling debt. That was on a Tuesday evening, I believe, and by the Wednesday morning, it had changed to a theft. And so I find it very interesting from the first place that the guy who had run up millions of dollars in gambling debt and was about to ensnare one of the most famous athletes in the world in a gambling scandal was trusted and allowed to have a one-on-one interview with ESPN and to represent the story the way that Ohtani's camp wanted it represented, because he's the same guy who just stole a bunch of money, theoretically, allegedly, to pay off his gambling debts. And so that, to me, was wild in the first place. Everyone has been saying this story doesn't add up, and I can't argue with anybody who says that the facts of the story, as they have been laid out, do not add up at this point. I do not believe that Shohei Ohtani was lying in his press conference. I believe that Shohei Ohtani gave a lot of very specific answers in his presser that suggest to me that one of two things. Either he is absolutely telling the truth, and I do believe that to be the case, or if you're someone who's skeptical of the things that Ohtani said, that they now have enough ironclad either blackmail or payoff going to Ippei that they know that nothing that Shohei Ohtani said in that press conference will be refuted. But either way, the important things to note here are that Ippei was gambling offshore with an illegal bookie in California. And whether Shohei Ohtani was paying off those debts or whether the money was stolen from him, either way, this is not something that he caused. This is not something that Shohei Ohtani was part and parcel to. And if someone came to me as a friend and said that they were in trouble and they had debt and I had the ability to help them pay off that debt, I'm not sure I would be running to my employer to tell them what I was doing. I'm not trying to defend the way that this might or might not have gone down, Matt, but there are more sympathetic aspects to Ohtani's story than I believe a lot of people are giving credit for.
Yeah, I mean, again, we may never know the actual true facts of all this. I feel like it's basically pretty simple, and I think it's more what you were leaning towards the end of your talk there, which is I think it's a guy who has infinite dollars, who has a very long-standing relationship with a guy who probably had a guy come to him and say, hey, man, I'm in big, big trouble. Like, this has gotten out of hand and could get dangerous for me. And Ohtani looks and, being a friend, being of the ability to kind of like, I mean, I know this sounds crazy because $4.5 million to anyone is a lot of money, but like when you are worth $1 billion, when you're approaching $1 billion with a B, it is kind of like It's more like a couple $100 to me and you, Adam, whatever. And so I think he probably just went and took care of it. And then he told his lawyers or his agent or whoever it was or someone close to him. And somebody's like, oh, bro, you can't do that. Like, that's like, oh man, like, that's really nice of you, but like, you can't do that. Like, this is going to be horrible if people find out about this. And so that's kind of what I feel like probably happened and why things had to switch the way that it did. But I think it's probably nothing more than Ohtani just trying to be a nice guy. And then he got advice from someone who said, you are a nice guy, and that is an awesome thing for you to do, but you just can't do that.
And the problem for the media right now goes back to everything that they've been mad at Ohtani about, misplaced anger in my opinion, for a long time. Shohei Ohtani is not a transparent athlete. He does not give a lot of interviews. He does not give a lot of insight into his life. He didn't want people to know what his dog's name was.
He secretly got married. He how are you one of the most famous athletes in the world and you secretly get married? It's like you pop up one day and like, oh, by the way, here's my wife. Like, I mean, it's just like, yes, he is very private.
He is very private with a secret wife and a secret dog, apparently. But, Shohei Ohtani has not given the media the kind of access that they like. And they were taking it out on him before this, right? They were saying, well, this free agency stuff, none of this would have happened if he would have just been a little bit more honest with us. Well, he's not under any obligation to do that. However, there is a flip side. And the flip side is that when you are not transparent about things that are not important, when big things happen, when important things happen, and you have not given transparency in the past and you're not giving a lot of transparency now, you are unfortunately leaving everyone to fill in the details in the situation. The problem, Matt, that we're beginning to see laid bare in front of us is that those who are left to fill in the details don't know much about sports betting. And we have seen it come from the mainstream media. We have seen it come from mainstream media outside of sports, talking about how the Ohtani scandal is a sign that the intertwining of sports betting and professional leagues in the United States is going to lead to bad things. I'm not telling you that it's impossible for that to happen. What I'm saying is that Shohei Ohtani is not the reason for that, and Shohei Ohtani has nothing to do with DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, Caesars, or anybody else being tied up with professional sports leagues in business relationships. I understand that perception becomes reality, but we need to be educated, informing that perception. If media are going to cover this story about Shohei Ohtani, they need to take the time to understand that sports betting in the United States did not start in 2018. It has been proliferating offshore with bookies onshore for a very long time. And the idea that what has happened with Ohtani is the canary in the coal mine is just simply wrong.
Well, we can just take this even a step further, Adam, and it's like it's a simple case of KYC for both sides of this, right? It is know your customer on both sides of this. For one, in any of the legal sports books, a random Joe Schmo is never getting down $4.5 million as it is anyway, right? I mean, like, they're going to get flagged, their account's going to get cut off, like all the different things that are going on. On the flip side, it's a know your customer from the bookie standpoint, because they will happily continue to take all of these massive bets from Shohei Ohtani's interpreter because they understand what their position is. They go to him and say, hey, you're going to pay these debts off. You're going to go to Shohei and you're going to get that money, or we're going to break your legs, or we're going to whatever it is. So it's like, it's a case of know your customer on both sides of this, which is in the legal market, this never gets as bad as it is right now, because you and I not having proof of funds and not having the means of being able to put this type of money, we would get flagged for money laundering instantly. Like it would never happen in a million years. Like, we would instantly go down because they would see that our net worth is not big enough to be able to make these size bets and to lose this much money. And then so on the other side of this, it's this guy has Shohei Ohtani who's worth $1 billion, really close to him. Sure, we'll keep taking these bets because he's going to go get us some money one way or another. It might not be all $4.5 million, but like they know they're going to get paid a lot of money one way or another because Shohei's probably going to bail him out. And so it's just a deal where, again, we keep going back to this. The legal market prevent something like this because it gets insta-flagged. Like, it instantly gets flagged, and this never, ever even gets close to being as bad as it got.
Does anybody out there know who the biggest players are at DraftKings, at FanDuel, or, say, in Las Vegas at Caesars Palace, or at the Venetian, or at the MGM Grand? Does anybody know who the biggest VIP sportsbook accounts belong to? Who's playing the most on Baccarat? Who's playing the most in Pai Gow? No, you don't. And there's a reason. Because they keep those things quiet. In Vegas, no one is out there advertising who their high-end clients are. In fact, it is a feature of them being able to gamble at those places that your identity will be protected. We are not going to let everybody know who's out there. Now, you want to talk about the other side of this with Ipe Mizuhara? The Matthew Bowyer situation, the bookie, was thrilled to have someone related to Shohei Ohtani, according to the reports that have been out there. He wanted to use that as a recruiting tool for other people. He wants to broadcast it to everybody that he's got someone from Ohtani's world because, hey, obviously if someone with Ohtani's kind of money is betting with me, I'm a legit guy, right? Air quotes.
Yeah.
So those are the differences when it comes to Ohtani betting in the legal market and in the offshore market, I should say, someone from Ohtani's sphere, not Ohtani.
Yes, no, absolutely. So it just, to me, that was the first thing some people were saying to me, and I'm like, this thing never even gets off the ground, like in the legal market, like never even happens. They're going to look and say, like, yeah, I mean, Shohei Ohtani has money, but the translator certainly doesn't have this type of money, and then it goes into all kinds of investigations because then they're wondering if he's being a mule for Ohtani. You know, again, so it's just all kinds of things that are going on there, so this never ever gets off the ground. So yeah, I'm with you, but as you said, it wasn't just this story that we were dealing with last week either.
No, and now we get to the story involving Jontay Porter of the Toronto Raptors that I think if you are contributing to that mountain of think pieces that's out there, you're a little closer to reality when it comes to this. But I'm going to bring up a number of points to highlight why the legal market is the reason that this didn't get any worse than it has been thus far. So, Jontay Porter, a reserve forward, the brother of Michael Porter Jr. from the Nuggets, plays for the Toronto Raptors. On two different occasions in the last few months, Jontay Porter came out of games early with supposedly aggravations of lingering injuries or like acute situations that he had to come out of the game after just a few minutes. At the same time, there was a significant amount of betting action on Jontay Porter unders. And these are the sorts of things that become very obvious very quickly when a sports book, like DraftKings in this case, puts out its information to media and says, here are the most bet props of the day. Yeah. And everyone kind of tilts their head to the side like a dog and says, on both of those days, why would Jontay Porter be the most bet prop at the entire DraftKings sportsbook? Now, what happened was the first time this happened in January, it was flagged. It was said, hey, you know, we probably should keep an eye on this moving forward to make sure that nothing like this happens again. And then in late March, guess what? It happened again. And when it happened the second time, it immediately became a major story. It was something in which Jontay Porter was identified as someone we need to be keeping an eye on. These bets need to come off the board. That is an integrity problem. That is a massive integrity problem for the NBA and for legal sports betting. I know that we often will be accused of taking a rosy view of the regulated market here, but I will take a rosy view and say the reason this did not become worse was because it happened in the regulated market, because it was flagged immediately on the first time that someone saw it happen. And on the second time someone saw it happen, they said, that's about it. Oh, also because there were bets of $1,000, $2,000 at a time, but people were trying to get down much larger action on this, right? Like they were trying to get down 5-figure bets. And if someone's trying to put down a 5-figure bet on an NBA prop for a reserve forward, your eyes are going to pop if you are behind the counter.
Yeah, we're talking about, and you know, Adam, we always wonder about just the individual player prop stuff and individual player prop market and where we're kind of going with all of this. And I think people look and see the type of money that NBA players make and realize like this is just not going to happen at all. Well, the thing is Porter's a two-way guy. He's a two-way player. If you don't know, I don't have time to explain all this. Anyway, two-way contract guy, it comes out to about $400,000, right? So if you're making about $400,000 because you're a guy that isn't really on the roster and stuff, then you could be susceptible, right, to someone coming to you and maybe offering something in order for your services. The 99% of NBA players are making $5+ million a year. The last guy on the bench is still making $4 and $5 million a year, right? And so it is very, very, very unlikely for any of that to happen. So, I mean, is there a future down the line here, Adam, where you know what? We're only going to get prop bets. We're only going to get prop lines on regular starters or regular guys in the rotation, maybe. And if that's the case, is that really going to be that big of a deal? I don't think so. If we have to do things like that in order to just make sure that these markets are a little bit more safe and a little bit more secure, I'm all right with that. I mean, sure. Are they more exploitable with these guys that there's less information about? Do the algorithms know less about some of these guys? Do you feel like as a prop bettor, maybe you have some edges? Sure. But me looking at the industry as a whole, I would much rather give away a little bit of my edge on this side in order for the health of the industry as a whole. So if I'm only going to get the top 7-8 guys in the rotation on a prop bet, side of things every game, so be it.
Or how about this? This is a classic limit situation, right? If the limits are low enough, offer it for everything if you want to have it on the board. Because how many people out there are trying to get a dime on Jontay Porter's props? That's not something that happens, right? That is not the common thing, which is why the Jontay Porter situation jumped out the way that it did. You can control this by having $100, $200 limits on markets for players where there is less information and where you might believe that in some way they are more volatile for you to be able to try to handle as a bookmaking operation. Now, you talk about the $400,000, and I know if you're listening to this, you're probably saying, that seems like a lot of money. If I had a $400,000 job, I wouldn't risk it as an NBA player. Well, who's to say it's for him?
Yeah.
Right? This is a young kid who maybe didn't think about his $400,000, who maybe is thinking about his friends who are saying to him, hey, man, you know how easy it would be for you to just say that you tweaked your injury and you come out of the game and we could all get a bunch of money down? This is such a quick score. Who would ever notice? Well, the answer is everyone. When this is happening in the legal market, we will all see it happen. And, again, innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
However, man, this couldn't look any guiltier on the surface. And Matt, I'll go back to the situation with the Alabama baseball coach and the guy who tried to bet at the sports book in Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, who told the people behind the counter, if only you knew what I knew. In some ways, the legal market has been helped by the fact that it has been some of the dumbest criminal enterprises possible that have happened. The biggest flashing neon signs for, hey, integrity monitors better catch the fact that a guy's trying to get $100,000 down on a college baseball game and that an NBA player is mysteriously coming out of games early at the same time that everyone is trying to get massive action down on his unders.
Yeah. We say it all the time. I mean, this, this doesn't get caught if it's not for the legal market. It's what it is. Like you said, I mean, there are stats. They're able to put out this information. People can take that information and do with it what they will and stuff like that. Like I said, innocent until proven guilty doesn't look great. So that's all we'll say here on the pod.